Good morning, YouTubers. Uh, Welcome to the Taino Lifestyles YouTube channel. Okay, and so I'm brand new. This is my first time in this channel. This is my first time doing a video, a YouTube video. I just think it's the time right now. It's a lot of misinformation, all kinds of information out there right now, and it'll get you confused. You don't know what's going on, what's what. This channel is for education and informational purposes as well. And we will be discussing everything. Right? By the way, my name is Chino. Um, I go sometimes, depending on the setting, I go by Chino the producer because I am a producer, a music producer as well. Um, but yeah, in this channel, we're going to talk about everything. I mean, we're going to talk about everything. We're going to talk about race relations. We're going to talk a little bit about politics, not too much. I don't like to talk about politics too much. But definitely we're going to talk about the condition of the country. We're going to talk about gardening, food recipes. I mean, you name it, history, some religious stuff, just a little bit of everything, just about. So be ready to hear a little bit about everything. Um, so go ahead and like the video and subscribe. Help me out. This is my first time. I'm trying to see what the YouTube world is all about. And so just a little bit about me. As you see in my backgrounds, yes, I am a Freemason. Very well versed in my knowledge, my Masonic knowledge. OES, we have some OES over here as well. That's my wife. As you notice, I am prior military. I'm Navy. And that's my son in the background. He's Army. My wife is Navy. So we're a very military family, if you must say. And yeah, so we like I said, we'll talk about guns. We'll talk about all kinds of stuff. Riots and formations and a lot of things, race relations. You know, the reason why I call the website the channel Taino Lifestyles. For people who don't know what Tainos are, or who they are, or who they even were, the Taino people were descendants of the Arawak people. The Arawak people were people who were from, I want to say, from the Venezuela area, Central America, South America, kind of thing, and they migrated towards the towards the Caribbean. The Antilles, the small Antilles, and all the way up to the Caribbean and all that, and to what is now known as Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic, Haiti, Cuba, Jamaica, all those places. And people would be surprised, but yes, Jamaica and Haiti did have Tainos. Not very much in those areas, but they did have them. There was also another tribe of native Indians from that area called the Caribs. And they were pretty much dealing with, the Tainos and the Caribs kind of had battles and they dealt with each other for a while. So, but when it's all said and done, we're all really the same people at the end of the day. When you're looking at the Caribbean people, when you're looking at Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Dominicans, we're all really the same people. The food is similar. Our Spanish slang is similar, so, but at the same time, you get a lot of ignorant people that don't really know their history. So I kind of want to touch a little bit on the Taino history. I know most of you guys out there probably don't care, and that's fine. That's cool. But basically, the Taino history, like I said, these were native Indians, from the Caribbean area. And first of all, they were dark people. They weren't light-skinned people at all. They were very dark people, you know what I'm saying? Being in the Caribbean with that sun out there, yeah, I can see why they were dark-skinned people, And basically, they were pretty much just regular people, down to earth people. They got their food mainly from farming in the island. Like such things like coconuts, cassava, coffee, sugar, um, tobacco. Those were like the main exports in those areas during those times, and gold as well. And so when the Spaniards in 14, what was it, 1492, I don't know, I can't remember exactly the dates, in the 1400s, let's just say that, when Christopher Columbus so-called discovered America, which I don't I don't like how they play that out, like discovered, because like how do you discover land that was already inhabited by people for centuries, as they've been there for the longest time? I mean, they had their own culture and everything. I don't know. But anyways, so when he so-called discovered America, um, everybody knows that he went to the Caribbean first. And going to the Caribbean, he discovered these group of native Indians, and he was looking for gold and silver and spices and silk and tea, all that great stuff. They were looking for that kind of stuff, but they thought they landed in India. So that's why the people were called Indians, but they weren't Indians. They were natives. They were indigenous, you know. But anyways, so he lands in Puerto Rico and Cuba and Dominican Republic and stuff, and he conquered it for Spain, or he colonized it for Spain, should I say? Mind you, which is crazy because he was Italian, and it's interesting. Christopher Columbus was an Italian man. Um, if you notice in history, the only countries that didn't really conquer too many countries out there, out of the Europe area, was Portugal and Italy, which I think that's kind of amazing. That's kind of interesting. I think Portugal probably got a couple little spots, like, well, they got Brazil and they got like the Azores and all that, but they didn't do too much conquering. Um, and I know the Italians, they really didn't do any conquering, which is weird because I don't understand that. But yeah, so he runs to the Queen and the King of Spain, and he's like, "Hey man, give me some money. I'll go ahead and conquer stuff for you guys in the name of Spain." Blah blah blah, yada yada. And they say, "Okay, cool." So of course they give him the money, they give him the ships. He comes to the Caribbean because he got lost, not because he wanted to go there. But he goes to the Caribbean. He sees these beautiful islands, and he sees these people, and their leaders are wearing gold pieces in their necks. They got jewelry, gold, and they're like, yes, that's what we're looking for. So, it's very interesting how everything kind of changed from there. The Spaniards pretty much uh, used the Tainos to take all the resources for, and at this point, I'm gonna speak on Puerto Rico because that's my heritage. That's where my descent, my parents are from Puerto Rico. I was born in Chicago, so it's in my blood. So I'm very proud of my heritage. Um, so yeah, again, this Cuban flag is because of my wife, but I am Puerto Rican. But actually, so yeah, um, a lot of people don't really know the extent of the Taino and how they pretty much got extinct, pretty much, and all because they wanted to, what I'm saying, get the gold. They got all the gold, and they got to a point where they couldn't really do it anymore because they were pretty much killing the Indians, or the indigenous people, the Tainos. And it's crazy how nobody knows about their religion. Nobody knows about how their system, like their systems or anything. Nobody really knows. It's kind of, I think it's crazy. Um, and I feel that it's I feel that a lot of things that happen to us in the Caribbean um, are very similar to what happened to the African Americans here in the United States. And the Africans that were enslaved, like in Haiti and Puerto Rico and Cuba, the whole Caribbean had African slaves, and they actually landed in the Caribbean first before they even landed here in the mainland. But a little bit of the origins of the Tainos, Tainos religion, which I think is very interesting. Um, so, like I was saying before, the Spaniards pretty much killed out the Indians, the natives, the indigenous people. They pretty much killed them all out. So now they need somebody to work the land to get the gold. They don't know how to work the land because it's Caribbean, it's different, it's an island, it's tropical. They didn't know that. So here they come and they get these African people, these African slaves. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people don't understand that before the Spaniards were the Spaniards, before they became Spaniards, what we know as Spaniards, right? Um, they were they were conquered by the Moors. You know what I'm saying? And we all know that Moors were black people. You know, which is I think is very ironic that if you go to Spain now, you see ancient mosques, and it kind of makes you think, what are these mosques doing in Spain when Spain is predominantly a Christian country? It's kind of interesting. But anyways, yeah. So these mosques, of course, they were there because of the Moors and all that. I'm willing to bet that Christopher Columbus' crew, I willing to bet that maybe a good majority, like 60%, was probably Moors too. Who knows? I'm not sure on that, but that's just me speculating. You know. But too many people don't know about the Taino religion and the myths and the systems and how everything worked with the Tainos. Not too many people know about it. Not that they, and then, and honestly, I don't think too many people care because it doesn't fit their narratives. It doesn't, it doesn't fit their struggles. Um, but at the same time, I find that it's very interesting because the Taino religion was very similar to the ancient African religions that got brought over with the slaves. You know what I'm saying? When the slaves came over, they were using the slaves to work the land and all that, And out of working the land, they had them working the coffee industry, the sugar industry, the tobacco industry. That was a big thing, especially in Puerto Rico. Um, so of course they had these slaves working and dying for master to produce things and all that, which I just think is very interesting how the ancient African religious system and the ancient Taino religious system is very, very, very similar. Very similar. Um, you know, you have some of these black factions, these I mean, I've been following them because, of course, I love my black people as well, because I feel that we are all intertwined, we are all related, and we are also the descendants of Africa too. So we are also part of the African diaspora. And I know I look very light skinned, and people look at me like, "Yeah, you're not black, dude," but I am. It's a crazy thing. I am because, like I said, we are part of the African diaspora. We are descendants of Africa. Um, and unfortunately, there are a lot of people from my island that look like me that will tell you, no, we don't know, which is sad because they don't know. They're just ignorant. They don't know their story, or they choose to not know their story, basically. But if you look at the United States, I mean, it's kind of the same thing here in the States. You got a lot of these people that don't want to claim that, that slavery wasn't real, or that, they act like, oh, it would have happened 400 years ago. Get over it. Like, move forward. And it's kind of like, it's kind of hard. You don't understand. A lot of people don't understand it. You can't just move forward, from 400 or 500 years of slavery, um, and not deal with the repercussions of that. And there's a lot of repercussions. Um, so, anyways, back to the whole Taino thing, and this is how I want to correlate the Tainos with the ancient uh, African systems, right? Um, if you go to Puerto Rico, there's Santeria is a big thing. Christianity and Santeria, they kind of like, well, they go hand in hand. Therefore, Santeria was born because of that. when the native, when the not the natives, but when the Africans came over, they had their systems. There's a bunch of systems that they had. They had the Egyptian systems, they had the Yorubas, the Orishas, they had all that, voodoo, hoodoo, all that, all that stems from that same system, from the same ancient, system. And it's a system that is multiple gods. It's a polyistic system versus a monoistic system. And I think it was very interesting to me because I was raised Pentecostal. Um, but for some reason I couldn't really blend with it. I couldn't really understand it. And like start doing research, and as you see, I'm a Mason now. So I've gotten into this research tendencies of researching everything, questioning everything, and just going through things. It's just and going in depth with it. So I think it's very interesting how if you look at the ancient Hebrews, they call God Yahweh, right? Yahweh. They call Jesus Yahweh Shai. You know, I think it's very interesting because if you look at the ancient Taino religion, um, God was known as Yahya. Okay, he was. It was short. The name Yahya was short from Yokahu Bagua Maurokoti. That was his real name. That was God, the entity, the energy source, right? He was known as the elemental beginning of existence, the life-giving spirit. Okay, his son was called Yayael. Isn't that interesting? Because ancient Hebrew, they call God Yahweh. Here we are in the Caribbean with these ancient Tainos, and they call their God as well Yaya. Isn't that interesting? Yaya, his son is Yayael. Interesting. Um, and so basically, according to the story, he expelled his son Yayael. Okay, Yayael intended to kill Yaya. But when he was allowed to return, Yahya killed him and put his bones in a gourd. So this is basically the creation story according to the Taino religion, which I'm sure nobody has even researched this unless you are from that descent and you want to research your roots. You see what I'm saying? Um, so, right, Yahya killed his son and put his bones in a gourd. So those bones that he put in the gourd eventually were transformed into fish. So one day in the absence of Yahya, the four quadruplets of Itiba Kaobaba. Okay, Itiba Kaobaba is referred to as the Earth Mother. She died in childbirth. Okay, so the four quadruplets of Itiba Kaobaba, okay, was led by Deminon Karakol. Crazy names. So they took the gourd and they ate the fish. So it's these four little kids, these quadruplets, right? They're the children of the Earth Mother. Now, if we were to really put this in spiritual terms, those four children would be the elements, right? Fire, earth, wind, water, you know. They're all descendants of Mother Earth. It all makes sense. Excuse me. So, anyways, Demian Karakol took the gourd and ate the fish. The gourd fell, and the water spilled, and the ocean was born on the earth. Another time after this, Demian Karakol and his brothers stole fire. The ritual of Kaoba, which is an ancient Taino ritual, it was a ritual that they would use to celebrate festivities and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Um, so the ritual of Cohoba and cassava, which is a fruit or vegetable from Bayamanaco, which is the god of fire, right? So Bayamanaco is the god of fire. And I'm reading this out of my iPad, so I know it looks kind of crazy, but just follow me and we'll get to a point where it's going to all make sense. Okay? So Bayamanaco shot Deminan in the back, and his wound grew. So his brothers opened it. So they opened the wound that he had in his back. They opened it, and a turtle emerged. Okay? So this is basically the first myth that explains how the ocean was formed. Okay, thanks for the sacrifice of Yayael and the daring of Deminan. It explains the existence of the fish and the act of using them for sustenance. So in other words, the Tainos ate a lot of um, ocean foods. Like, that's why if you go to Puerto Rico or the Caribbean right now, Cuba, the Dominican Republic, I mean, the food is astonishing. It's great. You know, you get a lot of like conch salad, you get octopus, fish, you know, shrimp, lobster, all that good, you know, seafood, just great stuff. Fresh, you know, from the ocean. So that's where this comes from. It comes from the history of the Tainos, you know. So basically, it explains the existence of the fish and the act of using them for sustenance. In turn, the robbery of Bayamanaco established cassava as the basic food in their diet. So imagine we were eating cassava, which is like a kind of like a potato or like a sweet potato type, that type of like a root kind of vegetable. So we're eating that with fish. I mean, it's healthy. You can't go any you can't go wrong with that. It's definitely healthy food, you know. And this is what we need to go back to. I feel like we as a people need to go back to eating healthy foods like that. You know, I've been, like I said, I've been in my research and I've been following people, and I was looking at Dr. Sebi's research in food, and he was very on point. There was something that really touched me about him when he said that you have to eat the food from your land. So if you're African, you have to eat African food. If you're Caribbean, you have to eat Caribbean food. But instead, we're Caribbean people eating American food. We're eating burgers and steaks, and that's not even normal. That's not what we're supposed to even be eating. You know, we're supposed to be eating vegetables from the earth. We're supposed to be eating seafood, fish, you know. Um, of course, later on with the Spaniards coming in and they introduced the pork and the beef and the chicken and all that, you know. But normally, naturally, as Tainos, um, it would have just been seafood and you know, vegetables, seafood and vegetables, which is very healthy, very, you know, great food, fresh. So they established cassava as the basic food in their diet. Okay, and they used to use fire to provide heat and light, and for cooking, and for kooba. So kooba, like I said, like I mentioned earlier, is a ritual that the Tainos used, um, basically starting a festival. You know, you start a festival, they did this little ritual thing, and then bam, the festival started, and everybody had a great time. You know what I'm saying? And notice that the use of fire, you know, barbecue originated from the Tainos. Um, so you guys can thank the Tainos for barbecue. You know what I'm saying? We were the ones that were cooking on top of fire, you know. I'm sure a lot of native Indians in the United States were also doing that. I believe a lot of native groups were doing that. And I believe maybe not a lot of African groups, African tribes were also, you know, also doing that as well. Um, so it's just, you can see how it all binds us together because we're all really at the end of the day the same people. Excuse me. So yeah, so you know they established that they were using fire for heat and light and for cooking, and you know All right, now this is an interesting thing right here. The Tainos conceived of the island of Haiti, which was called Hispaniola, but it's now called Haiti, as the body of a woman. It was a sacred place that they gave life. Okay, so back in Haiti, back in the days when the Tainos were there, because Tainos were in Haiti, um, Sapa said to my Haitian people, you know, they used to go to Haiti for, you know, to produce children. Right? It was, like I said, it was a sacred place that gave life. So they used to go to Haiti, up in that area, and just do what they do. They would go inside a cave, the cave of the divine serpent, which the name of the divine serpent, which is interesting, back then in the Taino language, it was called Iguanaboina, right? And so after they would do all that, of course they would wait until the sun rises, and then they would go back and, live their normal lives. So there was also a couple of deities that would be in the area when they were, doing life-giving rituals. You got one called Boinayel and another one called Marohu, right? These three were considered deities of good weather and life-giving rain. Okay? Their counterparts were other deities of bad weather and hurricanes. That's why the name hurricane comes from one of the gods called Huracan. Okay? So you could thank that to the Tainos. So Guabansex, Guatauba, and Coatrisque were the three gods that were in charge of the bad weather. And combined, they would create hurricanes. They had wind, water, and all that, So the first humans came out of the Casibajagua cave, which is the cave that where people would go in there and make kids, have sexual relations and have kids. And out of there is where humanity came from. This is according to their story, which is interesting because the life coming out of a cave, you look at in perspective and you start looking at spiritualism. We all know that the ancient Trinity was man, woman, and child, not God, Son, Holy Spirit. So it's interesting how life came out of a cave, and then as they come out the cave, they meet the sun for sustenance. Now this is Taino. We're talking about Taino now. We're not talking about Egyptians and Africans. We're talking about the Tainos, which I'm very sure they came. I'm positive that the Tainos came. Tainos that were there were probably Africans that were there from like a long time ago. So there is a big correlation between the Africans and us, even though a lot of people are ignorant and don't want to claim us as black, right? Or African descendants or whatnot. But we are, and we come in all shades and colors. So, so anyway, so that's a little bit of the story of the Tainos. There's also a couple more names. A couple more names of these gods, these Taino gods, But let me touch a little bit on, and if you're interested on the Taino mythology, which is one of the most ancient mythology systems before even the Greeks and before even the Romans and stuff like that, which is, I think, is interesting that nobody really talks about the Tainos and like the ancient, these ancient, tribal groups. But basically, the Taino society, it was strafed according to a certain social division. which included the cacique. So the cacique was like the man, was the boss man, the leader. You know what I'm saying? The cacique. And those were the ones that were adorned with the feathers, and they had the gold plates and the gold, and they were the ones that ran everything. They acted as the supreme religious, political, and military authority. So nothing could go on without the cacique saying yes or no. Okay. Then you had the upper class people, like the elites, what we call the elites now, right? They were called ni Tainos, right? And then you have the bohique. The bohique was the shaman. So you got the cacique, which was like the boss man, like the president or the prime minister or the leader, whatever you want to call it, tribe leader, whatever. That's what he was. And then you have the basike, which was, I'm sorry, the bohique. The bohique was the shaman, which is interesting because when the Africans came over with their religion, they had a shaman man too. See what I'm saying? It's pretty interesting how it all merges together. And I just think it's interesting. Um, so yeah, there was the shaman, and then you had the regular, just your regular common folks. They were called the Naborias, right? The Taino religion was probably more than likely polytheistic, containing animistic remnants of caciques were transported on litters during religious ceremony. So in other words, every time the cacique would move around, they would carry him. He's sitting down in this like chariot kind of thing, and they would carry him. They would carry him to wherever he went because he was like almost like God on earth type thing, you know. So, so like I said, they transported them on litters during religious ceremonies, and they remained seated on their throne like duels while officiating all these events. Their ceremonial attire for the caciques were feather crowns, scepters, cotton belts, interwoven beadwork, and gold diadems, earrings and round pectorals, and chest plates, all made out of gold, mind you. Okay, so this is what the Spaniards saw when they saw that and came in. They seen these caciques, these big bosses, these big guys, with this gold, and they were like, "Hey, that's what we're looking for." So sorry, my dogs. And so yeah, so basically, when you start seeing at it, um, if you believe in the ancient African systems, you start seeing that it's very similar to like the Orishas and like the Yoruba people and like situations that that kind of went on back then. So at the end, we are all the same people. So that's why I'm always, you know, I fight with my people, with my brothers, my black brothers and sisters. I'm with you. Right now, this country is, I don't know. I can't understand what's going on. There's too much hatred right now. Um, you got people that just perpetrate. They put us all under the same umbrella. They treat us Latinos, if you want to call us Latinos, or Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Spanish people. They treat us like we were black people too. You know, um, again, we were slaves too, so they treated us. They gave us that slave treatment as well. Um, so we all went through that. I think it's very interesting. I went to New Orleans a couple years ago, and it was so interesting how their story and our story is very similar. They were processing sugars, so were we. Coffee, so were we. So, in those processes of producing sugars and transporting it from the Caribbean to like New Orleans and Florida, and you know what I'm saying? All that, a lot of people were dying and getting burned and, just dying from heat exhaustion and you know all that. You know, it's just crazy. They would get beat and raped and the whole nine. The buck breaking, all of that happened in Puerto Rico too. Don't sleep on it. Trust me. So, you know, it comes to realize that we're all the same people. You know, and I know I have met a lot of, you know, ignorant brothers and sisters that be like, oh, but you ain't black. You're very light skinned. And I'm like, yeah, I am light skinned. Very light skinned, you know. It's because I have European on my mother's side, you know. But on my father's side, we're all dark. You know, it's just, and that's a common thing when you look at a Puerto Rican, Cuban, Dominican household. You're gonna notice there's people that are, you got fair skinned people and then you have dark skinned people, but they're all family, which is crazy. You know what I'm saying? You come to America, most everybody kind of sticks to their own. You got their white families, you got your black families, you got your, you know, um, and I could probably see maybe in the black families, I could see that maybe they go through the same thing we go through, where you see different shades of people in the family because that's just what it is, man. It's just how it is. So, anyways, enough about that. Just wanted to talk a little bit about the Tainos, and so you guys could have a better understanding of who we were, and you know. So before anything, before we were black, before we were anything, we were Tainos, at least in the Caribbean area. Um, but again, like I said, I stand with my black people. I'm wearing a shirt that says Black Lives Matter. You know what I'm saying? But when I mean the Black Lives Matter, I don't mean like that phony movement that's going on right now. I mean the actual Black Lives Matter. Like, I believe that Black Lives Matter as well. You know what I'm saying? And you know, you hear these people sometimes, and it kind of aggravates you. You know, they're like, "Oh, all life matters." I'm like, "Well, yeah, of course, all lives do matter, but Black lives matter as well." And that's the point. You know what I'm saying? The point when people say Black lives matter is like all lives wouldn't matter if Black lives didn't matter. You see what I'm saying? So Black lives matter too. That's what it is all about. If you can't understand that concept, then you're the problem. I mean, I'm sorry to say it like that, but you're the problem, because if you don't understand that concept, you just missed the whole point. It just went over your head. Um, you know, then you have a lot of situations going on right now that it's just, it's just we're definitely living in interesting times. I can definitely say that we're definitely living in interesting times. Um, you know, so I think I'm gonna leave this one right here where we're at. Like I said, this is just my first. This is my first video, so I've never, you know, like I said, this is my first one. Again, like I mentioned earlier, we will be talking about a lot of things. So if you're gonna follow me on this page, be ready. In this channel, be ready, because I will talk about all kinds of stuff. And I'm also ready for the backlash that I'll probably get for a lot of things and a lot of people hitting me back. I'm gonna get it. I get it. I'm ready for it, and I understand. So, you know, let's talk. You know, let's talk. You guys can comment, leave some comments. We'll have some conversations. Um, Again, but I don't want to just stay with the political, with the racial things that's going on right now. I also want to touch about other things. One big thing that I'm very interested in right now, as I mentioned to you, the way the Tainos were, the society was a very basically a country type lifestyle, just more in the ocean. So, you know, they were close to the ocean, so they had more access to fish and stuff like that, but it was more of a country lifestyle. So I feel that us Tainos, and what I mean by Tainos, I mean like the Caribbean Latinos, you know what I'm saying? Um, I think we need to go back to that, because we're so Americanized now, and we act like we can't fend for ourselves. You know, we act like we have been so dependent on the United States that At this point, if Puerto Rico, and it's crazy, Puerto Rico right now has a battle of becoming a state or becoming independent. And I'm like, at this point, you might as well just be a state. We've depended in the United States for so long that right now we have, no, there's no way we can go independent. You know, right now we don't have a military. We don't have any exports. We used to have exports. We don't have any exports no more. So it doesn't make sense to go independent. You don't have no army, no exports. Um, it's just a matter of time for somebody to come and invade us and take over. It's just that easy. You know what I'm saying? Um, so so I urge our people, you know, and even black people, right? Even I urge you guys too, you know what I'm saying? Get you some land, man. Get some land where you can be self-sufficient. I don't see too many people talking about this. Um, we need to get land. We need to have our own piece of land where we can do gardening. You can design your own house, build your own house the way you want it. Um, you know what I'm saying? And you can create a system, a habit, a habitat system for yourself and your family. You know what I'm saying? I'm also a big proponent of guns. Of course, I'm ex-military. I love guns. Um, I feel that this is a route that we must all go into. We have to go into self-sufficient route. Um, Staying in the cities like New York, Chicago, Miami, Orlando, you know, Houston, you know, staying in those type of cities is not going to help us, man, because if something big happens, which is going to happen soon, um, a lot of our people are just going to die. You know, and when I mean our people, I'm talking about our Taino people and you know, our African brothers and sisters. You know, we need to all stick together, and we need to all start the mindset of being self-sufficient. Because if the shit hits the fan, and it will, we're just waiting for it at this point. But when the shit hits the fan, and it will, you know, we have to be able to produce our own food. If not, we won't survive. You know, it's just gonna be rough. You know, I urge people. You know, I'm a strong believer in your Second Amendment. You know, carry your guns, man. Carry your guns. I have my guns everywhere. Everywhere I go, I have my guns. As a matter of fact, I have my pistol right here. Just in case. Because you never know. You never know somebody's going to bash your door in and try to rob you. You just never know. You're not going to tell your robber, hey, hold on, hold on. Let me go to my room, or let me go to my closet, or let me go over here, get that. Hold on. No, you have to be ready at all times. So I'm a big advocate on that as well. Um, so yeah, we're gonna go ahead and leave this here. Like I said, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, leave me a comment, let me know. Like I said, we're gonna talk about a lot of things. Some things you might not agree with, some things you will love, some things you won't love. That's fine. I'm okay with that because you can't please everybody. You know what I'm saying? Um, so we'll go ahead and leave that there. Again, stay tuned. I'll probably have a video tomorrow. Um, and we'll continue some conversations. All right. You guys have a good one.